Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the New Jersey gubernatorial election, an election that I personally have not covered too heavily on my YouTube channel, but I have decided that certainly is deserving of some more media attention. Now, the reason why I say this is because Real Clear Politics actually updated their polls today in the state of New Jersey, in which Monmouth University released numbers that shows that incumbent Governor Phil Murphy only has a 13-point lead over Jack Ciattarelli, who is his opponent. The reason why that is so significant is because this is a narrowing up of what the margin used to be back in August. Just around a month ago, nearly the exact same time period, Phil Murphy had a 16-point lead over Jack Ciattarelli. Now, am I at all trying to implicate that this race is going to be competitive down to single digits? No, I'm not trying to say that. But what I am trying to say is that we might be looking at a narrower margin than expected in the state of New Jersey. And it actually makes a little bit of sense. You see, so far I've been characterizing the state of New Jersey as a safe state, and I would have stood by that back on my characterization on September 6th, 2021. But today, I think I would change that. And the reason why I would change that is because New Jersey might be closer than expected. Number one, due to the lack of media attention. And number two, due to the fact that sometimes Democrats ultimately fumble elections in off years. It doesn't matter how Republican or Democratic the state is. Occasionally speaking, there are lapses in judgment that ultimately result in the opposition party doing better than expected. And it's also not even as if New Jersey is a safe Democratic state normally. In the 2020 election, Joe Biden only won the state by just over 15 points. In 2016, Hillary Clinton only won it by 14 percentage points. That is something that the Democratic Party shouldn't necessarily be worried about for future elections, but it doesn't put New Jersey in the column that I would normally characterize as pretty safe for the Democratic Party, enough so that it could be compared to the likes of California or New Jersey. But just looking at the margins here, the numbers in New Jersey, I would say that Democrats should not be worried. I think that this is just an indicator that something more might be coming in 2022 if New Jersey ends up being closer than it was in 2017. And another thing that I thought was a point of interest was that in 2017, even then, Phil Murphy only won by 13.3%. It was nearly rivaled by the Virginia gubernatorial race, in which Ralph Northam won that race by 9 points statewide, 8.9% versus 13.3%. It didn't really make sense considering that New Jersey and Virginia were very different. But actually now, they're about 6-7 points apart on the presidential level, whereas before, let's say, for instance, you take the 2004 election. I know that seems to be going a bit back, but certainly is worth talking about. In the 2004 election, New Jersey went to Kerry by 7. Bush won Virginia by 8. Or in the state, in 2012, for instance, a more recent election, Virginia went to Obama by 4. New Jersey went by 18 points. So you see that New Jersey certainly was different than Virginia in the past, but now has narrowed up. And now that Phil Murphy only has a 13-point advantage, I will say that this is an indicator, an early sign that 2022 will not, or might not go at least, for the Democratic Party in the way that they would like it to. And they should be closely watching this election, because this is the first true test about Democratic excitement in a safe Democratic state. The state of New Jersey is a state where the Democrats routinely win on poll closing within region. Now, I know I just referred to it as a safe state, and I said previously that it's not one of the safest states. It can still be a pretty solid state. I will say solid Democrat, not safe Democrat, because I don't want to confuse the way that I'm talking about this altogether. But point being that New Jersey is a state that will be an example of how Democrats perform in traditionally safe Democratic areas, solid Democratic areas. I need to catch myself there. The same way in 2017 that we saw a number of solid Republican districts that were utilized by the Democratic Party as blueprints on how they could win in more competitive districts. For instance, John Ossoff, if his name rings a bell, he is the senator from the state of Georgia who just won his election in 2020/2021. He will be serving through 2026. He ran in a special election in 2017, a district that had been won by Republicans by 30 points in 2016, which significantly narrowed up in 2017. And though it was traditionally a very safe Republican area, it ended up being exceptionally close, and the margin came down to within 4 points. In 2018, that district actually ended up flipping for the Democratic Party. But looking at New Jersey, I think that we will be surprised by the margin, at least from what the media might expect from the state. Now, before, like I had just said, and you can actually see it here on this website, map.jacksonjude.com, you can see that New Jersey is a state where I've characterized it as safe for the Democrats. That is no longer the case. Again, by the next time that I do update my projection, I do expect New Jersey to narrow down. And I think that 2017 is actually a good point that we can reference for our 2021 results. It was rated as likely Democratic by Real Clear Politics, and Phil Murphy only won by 13.3%. I would agree with that likely Democratic characterization. But I would also point out that 2017 was a very good year for the Democratic Party. Republicans end up doing better in off years for a reason. Even though the energy was against President Trump, and we were actually at that point in time in 2017, near November, near December, in which Donald Trump had reached his lowest point in approval ever. Around 34% of the nation approved of him at that point in time. You can see here that this is actually quite surprising that Democrats simply couldn't outperform Hillary Clinton relative to 2016. That they didn't do better than Joe Biden did in 2020. That 2018 was better than 2017, even though this was an opportunity. And I think a lot of it was because New Jersey, number one, was not nationalized. You did not see a heavy presence for the Democratic Party in New Jersey because they knew deep down that they were going to pick up this race. It wasn't really a question, the same way 2021 was. Now, not to say that 2017 was at all an indicator that 2018 wasn't a good year for the Democratic Party, but I think you could be possibly seeing the realistic margin to narrow up to a point where it was plus 26 down to plus 13. And that's cutting in half, effectively, of where it was in May of 2021. Plus 26 never really was super realistic, but for Phil Murphy to have had that lead before, you definitely question, why did he lose it? And obviously, it didn't seem realistic, but let's say, for instance, that election was held on that day. I'm not one to question the polling data because I'm not the one who calculated the numbers. I'm just saying, based off where I see it now, that this simply didn't seem to be too likely. But it also, I think, is just a testament to the fact that New Jersey is typically close in off years or sometimes even favors Republicans. Chris Christie won in the 2013 governor election by 22.3%, absolutely obliterated his Democratic opponent. 2009, he also won his election. He was the incumbent, leading into Hurricane Sandy, a hurricane that absolutely did a lot of devastating damage to the state of New Jersey specifically. In fact, in the 2012 election, polling hours had to be extended because of the impact of Hurricane Sandy. So what you see in New Jersey is that in off years, regardless of the type of sentiment that it is, Democrats actually don't perform that well. But I think that they should perform at least what they did in 2017, simply because, number one, Phil Murphy is not running against a Republican in an open race. This is not a circumstance in which he could hide under the guise of the fact that he isn't a well-known name, that maybe there wasn't excitement because he's not in office. Now that he is in office, the bar is set higher. Typically speaking, incumbents win their re-elections by higher margins than they do their first elections. That's also the case on the presidential level. Only two presidents have ever won re-election by winning less votes than their first time: Woodrow Wilson and Barack Obama. Besides that, every president who has served for 2 terms, every president that has been re-elected, has always won by a larger margin than what they won by in the first time. And in the state of New Jersey and around the country, that is nearly almost always the case in the governor elections, regardless of the presidential circumstance. Otherwise, those incumbents typically end up losing. But do I expect Phil Murphy to lose it all? No. But I do think that this was definitely something that jolted my attention towards this race, redirected the way that I was going to cover today's video into the New Jersey governor race, because the lead here has effectively cut in half. And if you take a look at the 2017 data, it actually wasn't that far off, which means that we can probably trust a lot of these new numbers. Monmouth University said that Phil Murphy was going to win the state of New Jersey by 14 points. He ended up winning by 13.3%. Their margin of error was 4%. Their final margin of error, in terms of difference between the final result and Monmouth University's prediction, was less than a point. So when I look at these new numbers, I do think that it does make sense that Phil Murphy would win by 13 points, but I think that he should probably perform better than 2017, especially if Democrats want to beat the allegations that 2022 won't be a year good for them. Anytime a Republican gets an advancement, anytime a Republican narrows up a margin, anything that helps them, regardless if it's a moral or a political victory, it will benefit them for the midterms. The same way Democrats used their moral victories, they didn't actually get a special election victory until the end of 2017 in the Alabama Senate race. They used the energy from narrowed up races to spring them to victory in 2018. That could happen here in this governor election. Democrats lucked out in the California recall election with Gavin Newsom surviving by a larger margin than 2018. In no way can Republicans take that and try to spin it into a way to say that Democrats are at the disadvantage across the nation. But if New Jersey comes back closer, if Virginia comes back closer, there they have it. While it won't be awe-inspiring that New Jersey was a few points closer than it was in 2017, enough to say that that would be the sole reason why Republicans would win back the majorities in 2022, but it is enough to say that combined with Virginia rhetoric, that combined with future special elections that will inevitably take place in early 2022, this will give the Republican Party the ammunition that they need in order to skyrocket their support, in order to inspire their voters. When they go to rallies and say, you saw what we did in New Jersey, we may have lost that race, but we narrowed it up significantly. If the New Jersey governor election comes back closer than anyone expected, without any type of nationalized attention, it makes Republicans seem more electable, even in races where major Republicans didn't step in. Even if major Democrats might not have stepped in. For instance, when you take a look at Phil Murphy in the general election and you take a look at the candidates running, you don't really see much discussion about endorsements. You know, when you're looking at Phil Murphy, who is he endorsed by, right? Well, you have labor unions, you have organizations, you have a county executive, and then you have one United States representative. You know who you don't see? You don't see President Biden. In terms of the endorsement for Jack Ciattarelli, what do you see here? Do you see an endorsement from President Trump? No, you do not. The rhetoric here will be that Phil Murphy and Ciattarelli are in elections that are close. And if it narrows up, the argument will be that Republicans can win with or without a major endorsement from President Trump. It will be a testament to the Republican Party support, even if President Biden himself did not weigh in on this race. The rhetoric and the results of the election, even if Democrats win, will benefit the GOP as long as it narrows up. That's why Democrats lucked out. When I made my California analysis video, I said there's no way that Gavin Newsom wins by a larger margin than he did in 2018. And he did it. I was wrong about that. I thought that Gavin Newsom would be saved by 18 to 20 points. We now know it is well over 18 to 20 points. In the state of New Jersey right now, I am expecting that Monmouth University poll to be correct. Like I said, I will be adjusting my rating by the next time I make my future projection. In the state of New Jersey, from safe Democrat to likely Democrat, it's still a pretty good characterization. There's nothing that they should be afraid of, but it definitely does need to be pointed out that it did narrow up relative to 2021, or that it could be more 2017, or that it could be more competitive than 2017, and what that means for the GOP's advancements, what that means for the GOP in terms of rhetoric, how they can use that to end up winning in 2022. So there's a lot on the line here, even if New Jersey doesn't seem to be an important election. California already occurred. Virginia and New Jersey are what we are waiting on. Like I had said, Virginia will also be a focus. You can see here that the numbers have recently narrowed up. Despite the fact that Terry McAuliffe had an early lead in these polls, you'll see that they certainly have narrowed up. The average is here, 538. McAuliffe ahead by 3.5. Real Clear Politics, McAuliffe ahead by 4.4. Joe Biden won the state of Virginia by 10.1%. Ralph Northam won the state of Virginia by 8.9%. So if the margin is narrowed up relative to 2017, to 2020, even 2016, in which Hillary Clinton won Virginia by 5.1%, what does that mean for Democrats in 2022? If they can't even win in states where they currently have incumbents by as large of the margin as they did the first time, or as Hillary Clinton, someone who is widely deemed as a lackluster candidate. Can you imagine the rhetoric if Phil Murphy, while he did it in 2017, for 2021, if he underperforms Hillary Clinton, if he underperforms every single Democratic contender besides John Kerry and Al Gore, meaning Obama era on? If Phil Murphy can't match that, if he can't replicate a margin of victory that large, it will certainly be used in pro-Republican ads as a testament to that Republicans, if they won't necessarily win in New Jersey but can narrow it up, can absolutely win in more competitive districts. All of it is just what it seems like in terms of face value. It's optics. It's what is on the surface level of our election results. Obviously, a lot more goes into it, but these new numbers that put it below 15% indicates that this race can no longer be treated as safe. Monmouth University has a pretty strong track record in the state of New Jersey. I do think that I personally trust this data. Also, we don't see a lot of polls out of the state of New Jersey. If you take a look, we'll probably get a lot more as we get into the October-November timeframe, just because it does start to pick up and people start to get more involved in this race. Pollsters, media companies, campaigns, etc. A lot on the line, though, I will say that Democrats and Republicans see at the end of November of 2021, because it will be indicators. If Democrats are able to match and exceed expectations, beneficial for them. But if Republicans narrow it up in any regard, they will be able to utilize that the same way Democrats did in a lot of their moral victories in 2017. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2021 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.